Good evening, I'm Ces Orenia Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Sean Yao.
Tonight on The Big Story, Senator Ping Lacson brings out issues he wants answered when his committee resumes the flood control scandal inquiry next week. Among them, the former DPWH secretary supposedly misleading the president and the former speaker's connection to powerful contractors.
And arrest warrants are out over the case of missing Sabongeros. But the alleged key personality in the case, gambling magnate Atong Ang, is still nowhere to be found.
And the peso plunges to another record low, closing at 59.44 against the dollar today, weighing down the Philippine Stock Exchange Index as well.
If verified to be true, this could possibly establish a direct connection between the former speaker and the Discayas. In this regard, we may invite the former owner of the property to shed light. Ganun na lang kalaki ang tiwala, kung totoo ni former speaker kay Discaya. So hindi ganun kababaw yung kanilang yung kanilang samahan. Niloko niya pa. Sa cover up pa lang, no? Kitang-kita mo yung kanyang complicity. Now, Secretary Bonoan is in the United States. More or less, may idea naman kami, yung authorities, kung nasaan siya doon. And minomonitor naman siya ng ating embahada roon.
A few days before the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearing resumes, the powerful panel's chairman laid down matters he wants addressed. Among them, the Cabral files and what looks like questionable actions made by certain personalities being linked to the flood control fiasco. Here is Mobile Journal Merimon Reyes with tonight's big story.
On Monday, January 19, the powerful Senate Blue Ribbon Committee resumes its inquiry into the still developing flood control controversy. As early as now, its chairman and also Senate President Pro Tempore Ping Lacson wants clarity on several issues. First, there's the so-called Cabral files now with the Public Works Department. These are the yet-to-be-verified documents left behind by the late Maria Catalina Cabral, supposedly the brains behind a formula that allocated DPWH funds across congressional districts, a system that eventually became vulnerable to kickbacks.
We are issuing a subpoena duces tecum to Secretary Vince Dizon with the end in view of consolidating all the files, including but not limited to what the late Undersecretary Cabral left before she died, and which are confirmed to be in the possession of the department and which the Blue Ribbon Committee needs to further enhance our inquiry and investigation.
Batangas 1st District Congressman Leandro Leviste has claimed possession of the Cabral files. Lacson said the neophyte lawmaker is welcome to appear before the Blue Ribbon to present these papers as well. But the senator prefers these to come from an official source, which in this case is the Public Works Department. Another issue Lacson wants clarified is information his office received that former DPWH Chief Manny Bonoan deliberately sent Malacanang erroneous information linked to flood control projects.
I received reliable information that former DPWH Secretary Manuel Bonoan deliberately submitted to Malacanang incorrect grid coordinates of thousands of flood control projects all over the country which form part of the Sumbong sa Pangulo website. This resulted in grossly inaccurate data involving some 421 ghost projects on previously inspected flood control projects earlier reported to the public by the said department, and which they are now trying to rectify by comparing the records in their multi-year planning and scheduling, or MIPS, MYPS, Project and Contract Management Application, or PCMA, and other related documents that remain intact and in the possession of the department.
Late last year, Bonoan got clearance to travel with his wife to the United States for medical reasons. Just the same, a subpoena has been sent to his address here in the Philippines for the hearing on Monday. Lacson says whether or not Bonoan shows up, there's a possibility that he might be cited in contempt and later on arrested.
So isipin mo, sumbong sa Pangulo, niloko niya pa. Sa cover up pa lang, no? Kitang-kita mo yung kanyang complicity. Now, Secretary Bonoan is in the United States. more or less may idea naman kami, yung authorities, kung nasaan siya doon. And minomonitor naman siya ng ating embahada ron.
Here's another matter Senator Lacson wants clarified. There have been persistent reports that former House Speaker Martin Romualdez bought a house and lot in a plush subdivision in Makati City through the king and queen of contractors, Curly and Sara Diskaya.
If verified to be true, this could possibly establish a direct connection between the former speaker and the Diskayas. In this regard, we may invite the former owner of the property to shed light. Hindi naman siguro nag-ahente si Diskaya. No? Kung siya yung front, siya yung lumalabas na bumili, ganun na lang kalaki ang tiwala, kung totoo ni former speaker kay Diskaya. So hindi ganun kababaw yung kanilang yung kanilang samahan.
Aside from Romualdez's possible connection to the Diskaya, Lacson wants to know if so-called BGC boys Henry Alcantara and Bryce Hernandez are indeed recanting their previous testimonies made before the Senate. That and information he got wind of that former PNP chief, now MMDA General Manager Nicolas Torre III, attempted to put under his custody former DPW's Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo.
I also intend to clarify with former Yusek Bernardo the circumstances behind a failed attempt by former Chief PNP and now MMDA General Manager Nicolas Torre to take him under the custody of the latter and find out for what purpose.
Kapatid Mobile journalist Mary Monreyes, we are One News.
Senator Panfilo Lacson also responded to recent statements against him by his colleague, Amy Marcos. And here he is addressing Senator Marcos's insinuations about his sexuality.
Either Senator Amy thought na piluka yung buhok ko or she was insinuating na bakla ako. Kaya siya nagamon ng sabunutan. On both counts, I say nothing can be farthest from the truth. Una, hindi po piluka ang aking buhok. Idugtong ko na rin na walang peke sa mukha ko. Hindi rin pustiso ang ngipin ko. My teeth are all mine. Ulitin ko, walang peke sa anumang bahagi ng aking mukha. Pangalawa, lalong hindi ako bakla. At yung iniisip ni Senator Amy na bakla ako, wala siyang maaaring makita na macho sa mundo.
Senator Amy immediately responded to Lacson's tirades on social media. In the vernacular, she denied calling him gay and criticized his understanding of what it takes to be a real man. Marcos added that there is nothing wrong with being gay or enhancing one's features, and that it is a person's right and decision to have anything done on their body ruin their face, name, or dignity. The presidential sister also added it all comes down to the question of how much. Before Marcos's post, Lacson dared her to produce evidence that will directly link her cousin, former House Speaker Martin Romualdez, to the flood control scandal. Lacson told Marcos that noise does not convict, only evidence does. Marcos had said that she has since given up on the Blue Ribbon investigation, saying senators were barred from pursuing higher-level personalities in the hearings. And to this, Lacson said he is now willing to give Marcos more time to speak if only she will start attending the inquiry.
And in other news, the peso has slumped to another all-time low this Wednesday, with analysts largely pointing to external factors as the cause of depreciation. The PHP weakened to 59.44, down from yesterday's close of 59.341. The peso also hit an intraday worst of 59.45, another record. An intraday best was at 59.35. This surpasses the record set just last Wednesday when the Philippine currency closed at 59.355 against the greenback. The peso has been on the decline since October of last year when it first toppled the record set in December of 2024. Economist Mike Ricafort of RC
how much can you attribute this historic low to domestic issues and to global issues?
I think what we saw uh, today is more of external factors, primarily driven by the word uncertainty. So whether the uncertainty is driven by the Fed policy cut that is expected, will most likely be uh, probably could materialize later in the first quarter or even towards the end of the first half, given that inflation in the US is quite stable at 2.7%, higher than their long-term target of 2%. Second, the geopolitics, whether it's Venezuela, Iran, and to a certain extent, Japan, now that they're trying to call for a snap election, has created a new uh, high for the dollar against the yen.
All right, so we can't blame domestic factors for this one this time.
I think what we can probably say, that's the reason why we're not appreciating below 59, is a couple of reasons. One is that the floodgate issue has not been resolved. Second, foreign direct investments had been dwindling. And we haven't seen any concrete measures to eventually try to address these issues. And it seems that even our stock market is waking up to the reality that the rally might not be sustainable. The only thing that's keeping the market up is really the prospects of further cuts in policy rates by the BSP.
Right, but when you talk about foreign direct investments, how much of the drop and the loss of appetite to invest in the Philippines is attributable again to global factors as to the flood or to the local scenario?
Well, I think we could probably say that over 60% is really driven by the floodgate issue. I think what we've seen in the past has really been a couple of factors. Aside from the floodgate, we had issues of cost of doing business, and this has been quite a problem for quite some time. It's just that over the last few months, this was further aggravated by the floodgate. So this again has really dampened sentiments on foreign direct investments in the country, especially when we talk about transparency, accountability, and of course, added to that, cost of doing business.
So it's a double whammy, actually.
Yes.
Okay, well, Jonas, while we're on the subject, right, you saw what happened to the budget that was approved, the budget for this year, 2026. And of course, one of the things that was removed there, and this could hit FDI, yung mga tax incentives of the two automotive companies under the CARS program, dinifer na naman, so that's probably not going to be paid. I know Senator Gatchalian explained this is not actual money, but a tax write-off. Do you think things like this could actually threaten more inflows coming in?
Not necessarily. I think the key issue really is about confidence, and we've seen this in the past. We've made certain adjustments in the past, including the anti-red tape. We've done all of the necessary improvements, but again, you need to understand that over the past years, we've had a lot of issues, and what compounded it really at this point in time is the corruption issue. So what we want to see this time, especially investors, is how will government address all of its projects and ensure that things will be utilized properly and it will not go to corruption.
We also
So
have...
once
Okay, go ahead.
unless we see some more concrete measures and we are convinced that they're really doing something new compared to last year, then it's very difficult to probably see the local sentiment improving.
Okay, well, we still have the BSP and they do have monetary policy tools at their disposal. A lot of analysts are saying the expectation for a rate cut is also weighing on peso expectations and peso strength. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, that's the reason why the dollar is strengthening. We initially a lot of traders, both local and abroad, were expecting a Fed cut as early as this month or this quarter. But eventually, with the inflation in the U.S. Slightly elevated at 2.7, while here in the Philippines, because we want to support growth, we're expecting the BSP to cut at least 50 basis point this year and probably one as early as within the quarter. Then if that materializes, that also becomes another vulnerable reason why the peso is also weakening.
But Jonas, I think the question also on everyone's mind is, do you see the peso hitting 60 in the first quarter?
Oh, if you recall the year ender, my year end target was 61.
So we actually
end of
outperformed.
2020.
We outperformed your
For the end of
target.
the year. No, my target for the
2026.
end of 2026 is at 61.
2026. Okay. So end of
Yeah,
first
so I'm not surprised if we will see 60.
Okay, but you also have Executive Secretary Ralph Recto proud, for instance, that inflation is below target. But how sustainable is a country's economic performance if we rely heavily on government interventions?
Well, again, that's actually a challenge because what we need to be able to do is convince everybody that we're slowly getting back to normal and we're seeing steps to ensure that there's no, or we minimize corruption. The government intervention is adding up to our budget deficit, especially whether this is ayuda but infrastructure spending does a lot more because it eventually trickles down to jobs, etc., and spending. What we need to be able to do is that people like you and me are comfortable to spend. With inflation, sure, below 2 to 4%, that can also mean something. When there is a high unemployment rate at 4.4%, and it's quite high for December, most likely people don't have enough jobs and therefore they're not spending. That's also causing inflation to come down. But December was 1.8%. Remember, November was 1.5. That's a sharp rise. And that could also mean that with the concerns over rising oil prices, weaker peso, that could push inflation higher this year above the 2%.
If that comes to pass, will you be adjusting your forecast for the growth in the economy this year?
Okay, I was a bit optimistic at looking at between 5.3 to around 5.6%. I was hoping that this would have been resolved within the first quarter, the floodgate issue, meaning someone big and hopefully confidence comes back. Right now, our business and consumer confidence are diverging, meaning consumers are already seeing that inflation has come down, we're ready to spend, but business is hesitant because of this floodgate. So it's like having a toothache. So once that toothache is addressed, whether taking pain relievers or you have the tooth extraction, definitely you will have a catch-up hunger. And I think that should eventually deliver that 5.3 to around 5.5% growth. So that's my baseline theory, despite the fact that the peso could weaken. You have to understand a weaker peso is good for tourism. It's also good for our OFWs and the BPOs. So there are positives and negatives to it. And one thing that came from the news is the free trade agreement between the Philippines and UAE. It's actually a good signal of trade diversification. So we're veering away from our traditional trade partners and looking at trade partners that are willing to trade with us on equal footing. That's a very good signal that we're doing that. At the same time, we know that the BSP is managing our currency despite the peso weakness. They've been doing a very good job in managing the volatility.
I'd like to pick up on what you said about the UAE. What sectors will benefit locally from this free trade agreement?
Okay, one of the things that we can actually benefit are the likes of fruits like bananas. No? So most of the produce that we try to send to these countries are the Cavendish, the one that lasts longer. But there is some demand for what they call the tiger variety, or to us, it's the lakatan. So there are other fruits that actually can go to the Middle East. So these are some low-hanging fruits that we can develop in the Middle East.
But what about industry, manufacturing, or tech?
Well, basically, I think we can try to look into the exports of our products. I guess one of the things that is very popular that is being exported to the UAE and other Middle East countries are basically the whitening soap. That's actually one of the retail products that are
Or
being
processed,
exported.
or processed agricultural goods?
Yes.
Okay, well, Jonas, what I actually, when Sas asked you that question, what I picked up on was what you said about our GDP growth. You mentioned businesses, you mentioned consumers, but you didn't mention public spending. In your opinion, we saw that drop last third quarter to 4% because of the slowdown in public spending, and that makes up a lot of our growth. Do you project that government will ramp up spending and for GDP to recover to hit your targets by year?
This first half is very important for their spending. That's why with the budget passed, we should be able to see how are they going to dispense of this funding to ensure that they can do a catch up on their infra. Support the spending of government, meaning it could be the signal. People take cue from government. So the consumer are also taking cue from how they feel, especially in their workplace. Now that inflation is low, of course, right now with the volatility in oil prices, the weaker peso, they're taking people are still quite holding on to their money before they spend. So, but once people start seeing more economic activity, that should thaw and people will start spending again. These are the things that we want to be able to see. Whether the BSP will further cut rates, it will depend, because you have to understand you can lead the horse to the water, but you can't force it to drink. No matter how much you bring down interest rates, but if the sentiment will not change, then it will be very difficult until such time that interest rates are really at a level where people will start thinking to start spending again, especially for publicly listed companies. They are waiting for the rate cut so that they can continue their expansion plans.
What about political noise, Jonathan? There is talk of an impending impeachment complaint against the president, and then we're expecting more impeachment complaints to be filed against the vice president in February. How will this affect the whole outlook for the year?
Okay, I think what we saw from September 21, we saw a peak negative sentiment, and it doesn't mean that we will not see another peak. If we don't get to see more action from the government in the coming days, especially starting January 25, or actually starting January 19. The reason for that, you remember Joseph Estrada from that time until February 26. This is a period where we see a lot of activity, and that could lead to a lot of rallies. So especially leading to EDSA 1 celebration. So a lot of things could happen. But again, the public is still waiting who will be jailed. whose cases will be filed. And this is what's keeping people at bay. But if they don't see anything, and just like the toothache, if the painkillers will wear off, then definitely negative sentiment will rise. That could create another, series of wait and see again for investors. So these are things that everyone is monitoring. We're starting to see again all of this noise. So the best way to do is really just wait. And again, whether we look at it from a peso perspective or the equity perspective, everybody's a bit jittery. But I think one thing is for sure, with the government passage of the budget, the key word really is to ensure that the money is not going to go to waste. Once people start seeing that, people can Filipinos are very forgiving. And once they start seeing this type of activities, definitely that sentiment will slowly change. And as I said, hopefully by the end of the first quarter, the signals that we're looking at, that business will start coming back, government is spending, should be able to at least put a floor or at least put a peak on the peso by the first quarter, and the second quarter should at least see a lot of remittances, as this is the typical cycle of our OFW remittance. They send money during the second quarter. Hopefully at that time we should see better improved investor sentiment, and probably a better the political uncertainty that we're talking about should be gone. That's I think that's the baseline view. Until such time we don't see any of this, then that's the time we start rethinking of what's next.
Well, Jonas, just as a final question, you already mentioned that people are jittery. They're now on a wait-and-see mode. But I wanted to get your forecast on precious metals. Do you see gold hitting $5,000 anytime soon? Is that a safer alternative for Filipinos this time?
Okay, I think that the risks on the upside are there. Probably whether it's 4,500 to 5,000. I think the prices have exaggerated or extended these rallies. And taking advantage of 3,500 points away or 1,000 points away from these levels, people tend to be conservative. Sure, there's still that upside, but I think one thing is for sure, the market doesn't go up fast, and there will always be that correction. So with the uncertainty on the global front, one of the things that financial markets don't like is uncertainty, especially with a potential change of Federal Reserve chair. There could be a pause, meaning whether you call it a correction or a pause, it could materialize. Let me give you two examples. 1987, when Greenspan took office, the Black Friday eventually happened. And in 2008, when Ben Bernanke took over, there was the global financial crisis. So sometimes the market has a funny way of testing new governors of central banks. So if we were to take history, it's not smooth sailing, and rough seas are actually good tests for good captains, and I'm worried that that could eventually materialize.
We have to brace ourselves then. We thank you for talking to us, economist Jonathan Ravelas.
We're just going to take a quick break, but coming up, gambling magnate Charlie Atong Ang has an arrest warrant over the missing Sabongeros case. But as we speak, he is yet to turn up and receive it. We have more details when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
Thanks for staying with us here on The Big Story. PNP teams are now on the hunt for businessman and gambling tycoon Charlie Atong Ang. Ang and at least 17 others were ordered arrested by the Santa Cruz Regional Trial Court Branch 26 in Laguna over the missing Sabongeros case. Their charges include 10 counts of kidnapping with homicide and 16 counts of kidnapping and serious illegal detention. No bail was recommended due to the serious nature of the case.
The PNP are now on their way to implement the warrant of arrest. We have certain procedures in implementing warrant of arrest. All PNP personnel involved are, of course, mandated na sundin ito at gagawin nila ang lahat para ma-implement. Tukoy ang ating warrant of arrest or location of Charlie Atong Ang.
This afternoon, PNP CIDG elements went to the registered address of Atong Ang in Pasig City to serve the warrant. At first, no one seemed to be in the house until Ang's lawyer appeared claiming his client was not there. Here's what happened.
Tumuhakan na paano kung may mangyari dyan sa loob?
Wala naman.
Hindi, how can you be
It's
sure?
just the service of,
Ma'am,
of an arrest
ma'am, this is
warrant. Sir, and
something,
wala
this is a
wala
service
rin
warrant.
dito yung kliyente ko.
How can we be sure? Titingnan po namin at
Papayagan namin kung may pumasok. Although hindi naman kailangan, pero to show good faith and good
Ma'am,
will,
kailangan naman
I
po.
am
Kailangan po,
allowing.
hindi po pwede.
No, pero
Kailangan po.
hindi naman search warrant.
Kailangan po.
A separate team also tried to serve the warrant in Ang's farmhouse in Batangas. That turned out negative too. So far, suspects have been brought in. 7 are civilians while 10 are policemen already under restrictive custody before the issuance of the arrest warrants.
Before nangyari po ang anong ito, they are already under surveillance and they are arrested. Some of them are security, some of them are employees nung yung sabungan. Right after na makuha po namin, we will be returning the warrant sa court and it is up to the court kung saan po ang sila madidetain.
Only Ang and a dismissed policeman are still at large. And with this, the CIDG is urging both to just surrender peacefully.
Meantime, the camp of Atong Ang is crying foul over the arrest warrant issued against the gambling tycoon. Ang's lead counsel, attorney Gabriel Villarreal, describes the arrest warrant as
Ma'am Son and Ma'am Pauline, and to all the televiewers of the Big Story. Good evening po.
Yes, may we have an update on the search for Atong Ang? Kamusta na po?
Yes, ma'am, good. As of 4 p.m. today, January 14, 2026, we already accounted 17 accused out of 18. Isa na lang po ang ating hinahanap, si Mr. Atong Ang.
So
The 17 ay arestado na po.
Arestado na hindi po sumuko sa inyo?
Arrest arrested din po ang tawag doon, ma'am, pag sinerve na po natin yung warrant of arrest. They are on restrictive custody po, kaya sinerve na po yung mga warrant sa
Okay,
kanila.
uh,
And with that po, they are arrested.
Okay, kasi based on what we aired just now, isa pa yung this is a police officer, no, who was the last to be served the warrant. Sino po yung officer na ito?
Ma'am, yun po yung isang, di ba 17,
Opo.
16 po yung kanina.
Opo.
As of 4 p.m. po ay accounted na rin po yung isa nating police officer.
So si Atong Ang na lang po ang hindi pa arestado.
Yes, ma'am. Tama po.
Okay. Any indications po na baka umalis po siya ng bansa?
Thus far, ma'am, there is no indication na nakaalis na po siya ng bansa. Ang ating pong proper authorities on sa mga paglipad, sa pag-alis ng bansa ay nagpahayag na po na wala naman pong records of travel. And thus far, ma'am, wala po kaming na tayo nakikitang indication.
Opo, pero meron namang backdoor. I mean, this is a man of means. Marami po siyang paraan na pwedeng tumakas.
Yes, ma'am. The authorities are now alerted nationwide kasi nakalabas na po ang warrant of arrest. And alam na po nila, pag cited po, ay pwede pong arrestuhin.
And to clarify, Major, before lumabas yung arrest warrant today, hindi naman minamanmanan or you're not keeping abreast of, spot check kung nasaan si Mr. Ang para, masigurado lang na alam natin yung whereabouts niya at any given time.
Ma'am, sinabi na po ng ating director na he's still in the Philippines kanina po.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you also saw the statement of his attorney, Attorney Villarreal, no? Ang sinasabi niya kasi na ang basihan lang daw po ng pag-aresto kay Atong Ang at dun sa mga kasamahan niya ay based solely dito sa affidavit, no, or sa kwento ni Julie Dondon Patidongan. Meron bang additional evidence na kayong nakalap na baka hindi lang namin nabalitaan bago kayo maglabas nitong arrest warrants?
Ma'am, for information po, the basis of the arrest is the warrant of arrest. And the warrant of arrest po ay a valid order sa lahat po ng law enforcers. Ito po ay order ng court. Sila po ang nag-utos sa amin na hulihin po.
So meaning the court found probable cause to issue these warrants, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Major,
Sumampa po sa korte yung sinampang reklamo, demanda ng prosecution service. That is why the warrant was issued po.
At Major, since hindi naging successful yung pag-serve ng arrest warrant kay Mr. Atong Ang sa Pasig City, ano pa po bang mga properties ang tinitignan ng CIDG?
Yes, ma'am. Ongoing po ang ating manhunt operation. The dedicated tracker teams ay deployed as of the moment. Hindi po titigil. Relentless po ang ating tracker team. To pursue and arrest po ang natitira natin accused.
Saan pa po kayo titingin, Major? Hahanap?
Ma'am, yun po sa mga known po namin na mga properties. Hindi lang natin i-disclose pero nakamanman na po sa lahat ng addresses na mga properties na nabigay na po at napag-alaman.
Madami bang properties, Major? Baka you can give us a number lang.
Ma'am, I cannot give the exact count pero marami-rami naman po, ma'am. Considering po na kilala naman po natin yung ating accused.
At Major, itong kaso po na hinaharap ni Mr. Atong Ang ay kidnapping and homicide at ito ay non-bailable. So ibig sabihin po ba nun, pag inaaresto na po si Mr. Ang, isa regular na kulungan po siya mapupunta?
Yes, ma'am. Generally, it will be a regular court, but it's up for the court that will issue the commitment order as to where, as to what jail po siya dadalhin.
Ito
Lahat po ay order ng court.
Ito pong 17, nasaan po sila ngayon? Saan kulungan po sila?
Yes, ma'am. They are all in the CIDG po.
But they will be brought before the court and the court will say where they should be kept in jail?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct po. The process would be after the arrest, the warrant of arrest will be returned to the court of origin who issued the warrant of arrest. Meaning, ipapaalam natin sa korte na, ma'am, honorable court, na-aresto na po namin, nasunod na po namin ang inutos niyong paghuli sa kanila, kaya nire-return natin, yun ang tawag doon, to inform the court that the accused are already arrested. And after that, ma'am, maghihintay po tayo kung ano pa po ang utos ni court, kung saang jail po dadalhin ang mga nahuling akusado.
On the part of the CIDG, Major Helen, no, kamusta ba yung investigasyon? You know, it was all over the news headlines siya for a while. Medyo natabunan ng slight nitong flood control issue. Pero meron ba kayong mga nahanap na, you know, in your investigation, did that strengthen the allegations made by Mr. Patidongan?
Ito, ma'am, ang mako-comment lang po natin. Although it's for the prosecution, ma'am, no, to tell us kung ano po yung mga additional na magagandang ebidensya para lumabas ang warrant of arrest, but maybe it's forensic evidence and additional testimonial and documentary po.
So forensic evidence.
Maybe, ma'am, but if, as I've said, ma'am, the National Prosecution Service po ang best na maka-answer po sa tanong natin ito.
Also kasi matagal na rin yung search doon sa Taal Lake, di ba? At napakarami na rin nahukay na mga remains doon. Pero as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, wala pong nag-match doon sa mga hinahanap na missing sa Bungeros. Is there an update on that?
With regard to that, ma'am, I'm sorry, but hindi po wala po ako masyadong information about it because as we all know ay ang mga nag-ano na po natin dito ay ang ating Department of Justice.
Okay.
Major, there
Yes, ma'am.
were certain beliefs that the CIDG was partial to Atong Ang because at a certain point during the case, he requested na ilipat nga yung investigasyon from the DOJ to the CIDG. How can we be assured na talaga pong hahalukayin ng CIDG ang buong Pilipinas para po makita si Mr. Atong Ang?
Ang CIDG naman po, ma'am, ang inyo pong premier investigative arm of the Philippine National Police, sa utos na rin po ng aming Chief PNP dedicated po, committed. We are conducting our steadfast manhunt operation. Kami po ay we seek the truth without fear or favor.
Okay. So since meron ng arrest warrant, kung may makakita po kay Mr. Atong Ang, pwede bang mag-citizen's arrest? And if kinukup-kup siya ng sino man, pwede po bang i-charge rin yun na parang
Harboring.
accomplice or
Harboring
opo.
Yes, po. Yes, ma'am. Sinaad na po din kanina ng aming director po na sino man po naharang sa aming gagawing manhunt operation ay may kaukulan din pong kaso.
Okay, marami
Kaya
pong...
pinanawagan din po ng aming director kanina na Mr. Atong Ancan, naman po, surrender peacefully and kasi warrant of arrest naman po ito.
Okay, marami pong salamat sa inyong oras, Major Helen De La Cruz, CIDG Public Information Officer.
And we're pausing for another breather, but right after that, suspended Congressman Kiko Barzaga is slapped with 2 counts of cyber libel after accusing a tycoon of bribing House members. We have that story and more when we return. Stay tuned.
We're back with more stories making the headlines today. Business tycoon Enrique Razon Jr. has filed 2 counts of cyber libel against suspended Cavite Congressman Kiko Barzaga before the Makati Prosecutor's Office. Razon is seeking at least 100 million pesos for moral damages and 10 million in exemplary damages. But what triggered the billionaire to sue the neophyte lawmaker? Here's Razon's lawyer.
Filed a complaint for cyber libel. The basis was the Facebook posts which Congressman Barzaga made on his Facebook account last January 9th. What we consider to be the defamatory statements.
Barzaga's now deleted post on January 9 stated that Razon, quote, is a mastermind of corruption in Congress and has allegedly bribed members of the National Unity Party to shore up support for former Speaker Martin Romualdez. In a Facebook post today, Barzaga said he is prepared to face Razon in court. The sooner, the better.
And in other news, heavy rainfall is expected in some areas of the Visayas and Mindanao provinces due to Tropical Depression Ada. As of 5 p.m., the first storm of the year for the Philippines is moving west-northwestward, packing winds of 45 to 50.
The alleged documents in his possession, taking note of a column labeled OPES/SAP. According to Leviste, per the spreadsheet marked as of September 4, 2025, the projects linked to this tag collectively received about 8 billion pesos. Lucas Bersamin, the executive secretary at the time, denied he is the person being referred to in the files. Leviste then clarified that it may have referred to the office that is already executing the budget, which he said was then Finance Secretary Recto. According to Palace Press Officer Claire Castro, such allegations need to be substantiated.
Ang Cabral files po ba ay nakaninong sinasabi niya? Hawak niya po ba?
Yes, ma'am.
So, yun po ay maituturing nating Leviste files. Ito, nakita ba natin?
Personally, ma'am, ako hindi.
Oh, yes. So, di po ba mas mahirap tugunan ang mga dokumentong hindi nakikita? Mahirap tugunan ang mga dokumentong puro insinuations. Mahirap tugunan ang mga dokumentong wala pang anumang basihan at wala pang ebidensya ng anumang anomalya.
Meantime, Senator Ping Lacson calls Leviste a vanguard who would dare to speak about revelations come what may. Lacson said he is exploring a possible meeting with the neophyte congressman at the request of his mother, Senator Loren Legarda. The Blue Ribbon Chair also wants to guide Leviste on handling exposés. Lacson's immediate advice to Leviste for now, telegraph or be strategic and concise with messaging.
Pasalamat na rin tayo na merong Congressman Leviste na at least naglalahad ng mga nalalaman niya na lumalabas talagang maski sinong tamaan, maski mga kasamahan niya. No? I'm not referring to Kiko Barzaga, ibang level naman yon. Ito yung pagiging raw na hindi niya alam yung laro sa politika. Di ba ganyan din ginawa sa akin ni GMA? Hanggang sa talagang nag-fabricate ng kung ano, Ador Mawanay, No? Ginawa akong money launderer, ginawa akong drug lord. Ganyan, part ng ano yan eh. At that time, kasi neophyte din ako noon, I could not understand. No? But now, looking back, naintindihan ko na. Yun talaga yung laro eh.
And before we go, the World Health Organization is calling on countries to raise taxes on sugary drinks and alcohol. This is a strategy to lower consumption of these products among the world's populace and, in the long run, protect public health. Our Jovi Francisco has this report.
Sugary drinks and alcoholic beverages are becoming increasingly affordable in many countries. According to the World Health Organization, this trend is driving rising rates of obesity, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and injuries, especially among young people. In two new reports, WHO urged governments to raise taxes on sugar-sweetened drinks and alcohol, arguing that higher prices could reduce consumption and improve public health.
Health taxes are not a silver bullet, and they're not simple. They can be politically unpopular, and they attract opposition from powerful industries with deep pockets and a lot to lose. But many countries have shown that when they're done right, they're a powerful tool for health.
WHO cited the Philippines as an example of a country that has successfully implemented health-related tax reforms.
In the Philippines, a major tax reform on tobacco and alcohol in 2013 increased revenues by more than 5 times, which supported the expansion of national health insurance to more than 15 million poor families.
The Global Report on the Use of Alcohol Taxes 2025 shows that at least 167 countries tax alcoholic beverages, with 12 countries enforcing a full ban. However, alcohol prices have become cheaper or stayed the same in most countries since 2022, as tax hikes have lagged behind inflation and income growth. Meanwhile, the Global Report on the Use of Sugar-Sweetened Beverage Taxes 2025 finds that 116 countries levy taxes on sugary drinks, with most measures targeting carbonated soft drinks. Many other high-sugar products, including 100% fruit juices, sweetened milk-based beverages, and ready-to-drink coffee and tea, remained untaxed.
We need to reframe health taxes as policies that protect health and strengthen economies, particularly in the context of declining official development assistance as this being a domestic resource mobilisation option. We also need to be showing that these taxes are not punitive, they're not regressive, as Gwen was just saying, or anti-growth. They're smart fiscal tools that generate domestic revenue whilst reducing preventable disease and long-term costs.
Last year, WHO launched its 3x35 initiative, aiming to increase the prices of tobacco, alcohol, and sugary drinks by 50% over the next decade through taxation. The goal is to make these products less accessible and protect public health worldwide. Jovi Francisco, we are One News.
And on that note, that's it for the big story this midweek. Thank you so much for watching.
We are back here tomorrow at 8 o'clock p.m. We'll see you then.
Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time. Have a good night.